Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to NRBP's mini series on racial and economic disparities as part of our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion series. I'm Barbara Kaufman, Executive Vice President and COO at Newark Regional Business Partnership, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you this afternoon. We have a really interesting panel and program today. But first, I'd like to tell you a little bit about what's coming up at NRBP and explain our format for this afternoon. The programs that are coming up for next week, we have a webinar as part of our Return to Work series that we focused on in the spring. And the September 30th program will look at an app that's been developed by a company, one of our members, called Carusa. And they will be joined by Emilcott, who you heard from last April. Emilcott will be updating us on what's happening in terms of state-of-the-art in the way that businesses are adapting their workplace to make it safe for employees to return. So the combination of the app where employees can self-evaluate and employers can have reassurance that people are safe, combined with the precautions and adaptations in the workplace, will be very, very informative. Then on October 14th, an event that we hope to have live, but we have evaluated and determined that it's safest for everyone if we continue to do our programs online. Our Regional Economic Outlook is an annual program, and the part that I am looking forward to, in addition to the two economic reports by the Port Authorities and the EDA's economists, we have a panelist who is a political scientist, and he's going to be talking about this election and how it is the same and differs from previous elections and what that might mean for the economy. We also have people speaking on other disciplines such as law and banking. So please make sure you sign up for that on October 14th. Then we have two networking programs. On October 1st, we're relaunching our happy hour, and we're doing this in cooperation with Cool Vines Newark. And you, if you sign up, we'll be listing the wines that we'll be sampling during the happy hour, and you can purchase them at Cool Vines Newark. So make sure you support a Newark establishment and sign up to join us. At all the happy hours, you have an opportunity to introduce yourself and do what's as close to in-person networking as we can provide online. And finally, for networking, our connectorship is brought to us by Pride Products, one of our members, and it's a game format that's very fast-paced and fun. So it's a way to lighten your day and do some networking too. Then moving to the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion series, many of you joined us for our first and second programs, the first on foundational issues and the second on law enforcement. And then coming up after today's program, we'll be looking at education on October 7th and at healthcare on October 28th. I will be introducing our series sponsor momentarily, Quest Diagnostics. But first, a few words about the format for today. All of the attendees will be muted and off camera for the duration of the program. If you want to pose a question, there is a questions dialog box, and you can write in your question. Aisha will be pausing at around 3 o'clock, and I will be reading any questions that have come in. You have the option, once we take the slides off and show the images, you can switch from View Everyone to View Who's Speaking if you want to have a bigger image of the person conversing. And finally, please watch your chat box. Maya Curry, who has been instrumental in putting together this series and has been leading all of our diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, we'll be posting messages that are valuable and helpful to you as the program progresses. So with that, it's my great pleasure to turn to Omar Joseph, who is Director of Regional Marketing East for Quest Diagnostics, and he is going to be introducing Aisha Glover as our moderator. Omar?
Thank you, Barbara. I'm so excited to be a part of this Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion mini-series. As a lifetime resident in New Jersey and someone who spent several years working in and enjoying the Newark community, I'm personally thrilled to be a part of an event that we can look at, different ways to help the city flourish. At Quest Diagnostics, we operate 6 patient service centers throughout the city of Newark, where we do the vital testing that provides residents with the insights that they need to work with their doctors to make the decisions to help improve their health. Our employees work in and live in the community, and it's important for us to support Newark in this journey to be healthy, both physically and financially. You may have seen us reiterate this recently with our $100 million pledge to help reduce health disparities in underserved communities, but this has been a part of our DNA since the very beginning. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing to you a fantastic ambassador for Newark, Aisha Glover. As the president and CEO of the Newark Alliance, she's been a leading figure driving economic revitalization of Newark and an advocate for social responsibility. Aisha has been building bridges with corporations, introducing resources and programs for underserved communities, and driving the economic redevelopment in this great city. It's this experience that makes her the ideal moderator for this event. And with that, it's my honor, to introduce to you Aisha Glover. Aisha?
Thank you, Omar. Quite the introduction. I'm always feeling like it should be stadium music whenever people have great introductions. So thank you for that. Definitely want to thank NRBP. I do miss these events in person for sure. And so definitely looking forward to getting back to that early next year if I'm going to be hopeful. Also just want to commend you on the entire DEI series. I think the content not only is important, but it's timely and some would say overdue. And so just given your reach, your attendees, your base, I think it's a critically important topic that we continue to explore and kind of come at it from all different angles. So I do feel like I'm amongst friends here. Great panel, if I do say so myself. Great partnership here, and it's really an honor to be sitting amongst colleagues and friends to really advance this discussion and open it up, particularly for Q&A. I'm always interested in the Q&A section, so hope that folks do take notes along the way and save your questions. So when Chip and Barbara reached out about the topic for today, again, I felt like it was timely, and not just given the time and tenor in our country and everything that is happening to us and around us, but timely from an economic recovery perspective, and timely because the Hire by Live initiative was initially launched 3 years ago in 2017. So for us to be able to have some successes under our belt, to share those successes, to look across our partners and colleagues and see some innovative models that are newer to the game, that are in the process of being rolled out, but quite frankly, that are all supporting this broader vision of Hire by Live. And so I'll just quickly surmise what that is. Hire by Live was an initiative, really a charge from Mayor Rajay Baraka's office alongside our corporate and anchor institutions in the city of Newark to prioritize local hires, local procurement, and local living. And so what that means is on the hiring side, there was an initiative and still an initiative underway called Newark 2020, which was an effort to hire 2020 residents by the end of this year. Fortunately, we actually met that goal by the end of 2019, and we'll get a little bit more into that discussion as we as we proceed with today's panel. The buy sector, we have Dr. Kevin Lyons here, who's really been doing phenomenal work in this space. We will talk about some local procurement efforts and ways in which we can better capture all the purchasing leakage that happens in our city. And then on the live local lens, it's exactly how it sounds. It's really incentivizing the workforce to live in our great city. So we know that still only 18% of Newarkers work in the city. And so there's a range of initiatives underway that was really spearheaded by Audible several years ago, and then Prudential seeded and expanded on the program across several other institutions. So we'll be talking about that as well. And I guess the meat of that is really, how do we leverage the presence and investments of so many of the city's corporations and anchor institutions? How do we leverage that for the benefit of Newark, of Newark small businesses, of Newark's residents, and really work collaboratively to strengthen the local economy? So I find this topic fascinating. I love this work. I really value being able to work in partnership with everyone here today. So I'm definitely looking forward to this discussion. We are gonna kind of go around, do a quick round robin with everyone, and then we'll kind of get into some of the meat of the questions. So I'm going to turn it over and kick it off with the Diana Candelejo from RWJ Barnabas Health. Diana. Can you still hear? I can't hear you. Maybe others can.
I've been unmuted.
There we go.
Thank you, Aisha. So again, I am Diana Candelejo. I am the Director of Anchor Strategy for RWJ Barnabas Health. I am part of their social impact and community investment team. And really my role is to promote economic development wherever we have our hospitals and facilities. And really we do this work again through an anchor mission approach. We hire, buy, and invest locally. And the reason for this work really is looking at it through the lens of the social determinants of health. So we really understand that in order to actually improve some of these health disparities and the health outcomes that we see, that we really need to look at socioeconomic factors like employment status, the neighborhood and the built environment, among other social determinants of health. So I'm excited to be on this panel, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Diana. And now I am going to turn it over to, and I'm stalling, so whoever remembers at their second, go for it, or raise your hand and then I'll introduce you. All right, I'm gonna just call somebody out.
It was Ann Ernie. Ann Ernie was second.
Okay, thank you. I'm pulling up my notes here. It's okay. We're gonna freestyle a little bit anyway. Actually, really honored, pleasure to introduce Ann Ernie, who's the Chief People Officer at Audible, and I am excited to be joining the Audible team as of October 5th, and being able to work with some of the rock stars there, particularly Ann Ernie, is very exciting, and Audible is doing great work in this space. So with that, I'll just ask Ann to give a little bit of an intro. And I think you have to wait to be unmuted. Almost there, we're almost there, not yet.
Hi, apologies. All the panelists can unmute themselves, and I'm actually not able to unmute you. Can you try pressing the button again?
Okay, it said unmuted. Can you hear me? We got it. All right, well, first of all, just my enthusiasm after your beautiful introduction. I couldn't be more excited to be working even more closely with you, Aisha, and hopefully get to know the rest of you on screen as we continue to drive the economic revitalization of Newark. I am the Chief People Officer at Audible, but I really run two key functions. I run both HR and our real estate team, which we affectionately call People and Places. So the People and Places team come together because people and the places in which we work are inextricably linked. And part of my team's mandate is clearly to drive what we call neighborhood making. We kind of live and work primarily in the northern section of Newark, around the Washington Park area. And we are very committed to getting people to live local, buy local, and also to hire local from, and we'll talk more about that later, from the elementary, well, from the high schools all the way through adults, even looking to change careers. So I'm very excited to be part of the panel and look forward to this discussion.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Anne. And we saw your excitement, so it's okay that the audio was working for a second because the video was there. Next, I would love to introduce Allison Ladd, Deputy Mayor of Economic and Housing Development under the administration of Mayor Raj J. Baraka. I don't know who I talk to more on a daily basis. It might be a tie between Allison and Daryl Shore from Prudential. So with that, Allison, please give some opening remarks.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Barbara and Chip, for inviting me to speak today. It's just really my honor to be on this panel with this wonderful group of people who some I know well and others I know I'll get to know real soon. So first, really on behalf of the city, Aisha, we extend our extreme congratulations to you in your new role as you join Audible. And I know you and Aisha are going to have a lot of great things to bring to Newark, so I'm looking forward to those conversations. And also, for those that don't know, Aisha is one of the first people I met when I started this job about a year ago. And I can't thank you enough, Aisha, for what you've given me professionally and personally. And at this time, really just wanted to send my congratulations to you. And so thank you so much. As it relates to the topic at hand, it's a very exciting topic for us. Just briefly, because I know we're going to have an exciting dialogue today. Things that are here in the city of Newark, Mayor Baraka is very focused on our residents and on our neighborhoods. And so things that you'll hear about are men's and women's meetings, our neighborhood development program in the West Ward, and also our Live Newark program that really talks about home ownership in our city. So I can't wait to share more about that as we get started. So thank you, Aisha, for giving me a chance to speak today.
Awesome. Thanks, Allison. Next, I'm going to introduce Karen Gaylord, who is the director of the Newark Workforce Development Board, a phenomenal partner to Newark 2020, and knew her when she was working in Newark Public Schools. And so it's just been a great hire for the Workforce Development Board and a great addition to the workforce ecosystem in the city of Newark. Karen?
Thank you so much, Aisha, and especially thank you for taking this next phase of your career into a deeper relationship with the city of Newark. We're delighted that you'll still be around to lead. I want to take one moment to say thank you also to Chip Halleck for his foresight and leadership in over quite some time building with his partners in the Newark Regional Business Partnership, an organization that is positioned to help the city of Newark in these unprecedented times. If not for the work that has been done by that organization to coalesce around issues like this, I don't know where we would be in terms of positioning to come out of this, you know, with some inspired and innovative solutions. I want to begin by setting some understanding and background of where we are today. This time last Thursday, we were receiving the numbers in our workforce offices that 52,653 Newarkers had lost their jobs since the pandemic began. We're expecting to get that updated number on Thursday, and I would expect it to be approaching 54,000. In the quarter July to September, half of those people who lost their jobs, about 7,800, were under the age of 34. 2/3 of the people who have experienced job losses between July and September, about 10,000 people, have a high school degree or less. 54% of women to only 46% of men lost their jobs in the quarter July to September. And of the 15,500 individuals who lost their jobs in that same quarter, 9,000 were Black and 3,000 were white, a 3-to-1 disparity. And we know that just under a third of those who lost their jobs are Hispanic. And we have every reason to believe that those numbers are undercounted. When we are processing those numbers week after week at Workforce, we're thinking about the essential workers. And I'm not talking about the nurses and doctors. I'm talking about the food service workers and warehouse workers who kept the food chain, food supply going for us, many of whom are undocumented, many of whom were able to get some employment to sustain their families during this crisis because there were relaxed verification practices during the COVID period. And we worry about what's going to happen when those things tighten up again for the undocumented population. We're worried for those workers who want to go back and are trying to figure out how their children are going to be educated in a virtual school environment. We're concerned about high school students who are going to struggle to graduate from high school with a high school diploma because they just haven't figured out how to do virtual learning. These are opportunity gaps that we want to face. And in Workforce, we've been accustomed over the years to addressing skill gaps. But opportunity gaps have been there and are more apparent than ever since COVID. And we are deeply concerned that the underrepresented populations that existed before COVID are in more trouble than ever. I want to just finish off these introductory remarks by saying the digital divide is a real thing. These are not just opportunity gaps. And we know that solving the hardware and internet gaps that are there and addressing the broadband deserts that are located within our city are really important things to do. But if we don't also uplift those people who haven't had access to that technology before by teaching them how to use it in powerful ways to advance their own situations and their lives, we really haven't solved anything. Why am I encouraged? I'm encouraged because the city, under the leadership of a mayor who's been truly a national leader in addressing this COVID crisis, we are leveraging. We're not just asking businesses to leverage their resources and think innovatively. We're leveraging the actual resources of the city, its housing authority facilities, community centers and recreation centers to create satellite operations for our workforce operations and deploying our personnel from centralized offices into the city's facilities where our residents live and where they commune to deliver some of the vital training services and other things that they're going to need to come out of this hole. I'm looking forward to the conversation and all of the great ideas they're going to be shared here. Thank you, Aisha.
Thanks for those remarks, Karen, and for level setting and kind of the reality check. And I think it's important that we keep those stats front of mind and deeply rooting our work, right? So it's kind of easy to get deep in the rabbit hole of doing the work, but and losing the why, or staying current around the numbers that support the why. So I deeply appreciate that. Next, I would like to introduce Dr. Kevin Lyons, and I'm only going to read his title because, you know, there's a lot behind it. Associate Professor, Supply Chain Management Department. He's the Director for Public-Private Community Partnerships at Rutgers Business School. He's one of the key reasons why I'm in the city of Newark, because of his work, particularly in the manufacturing sector. While I was at the Brooklyn Navy Yard, focused on supporting and growing industrial businesses, really looked to him and leveraged much of the research that he had put forth in citywide manufacturing efforts, and then came to use that data and that research to really inform a local procurement strategy. I have a tremendous amount of respect for him. Looking forward to his contributions today and continuing to work with him as I move over to Audible. So with that, Dr. Kevin Lyons.
Thank you, Aisha. I don't need to give an introduction now, so because you covered it all. But just real briefly, I'm glad to be here. Chip and Barbara, I really appreciate the invitation, and Aisha, we look forward to seeing all the great things you'll do in your next move. As my introduction has stated, I'm really hyper-focused on the localized nature of procurement. I have a procurement background, so this is something that's been very passionate for me. Even though I'm on the academic side, I spent a lot more time out in the field, meeting with and working with our local business community. I know that the pandemic has taken a tremendous hit on the ability of our small businesses to survive. But the key that I want to bring across today in the work that I'm doing is that we are here to ensure that the business-to-business relationships are strengthened, and that we have opportunities to take advantage of what is needed moving forward. So that might mean reimagining your business in a different light, expanding it, increasing the opportunities beyond what your original business plan had called for. So I'm poised to help you and work with you through that process. So again, thank you for the invitation today, and I hope that I'll be able to speak with all of you in the near future.
Great, thank you, Kevin. Next, I'd like to introduce Norel Mike, who's the president of New Age Investment Properties. She's the only person on the panel I don't know, so I'm very much looking forward to your remarks today and our discussion. Norel?
Thank you, Aisha, and thank you to NRBP, fellow panelists, as well as all of the attendees that are here today. I'm really looking forward to this discussion. So as Aisha mentioned, my name is Norel Mike, and I'm the president of New Age Investment Properties, which is a real estate development company that develops and manages infill homes. Although not formally a part of Live Newark since 2014, my sole focus has been to revitalize Newark by not only providing for sale, ground up new construction, but also quality rentals, all located within the South and West wards. In that time, I've had the privilege to offer several families, some of them multi-generational families, both for sale and for rent, affordable housing. I'd also like to mention that I am one of several designated developers working in collaboration with Deputy Mayor Ladd and the Economic and Housing Development Department to revive these neighborhoods within the city. So again, thank you, and looking forward to speaking with you all today.
I love that I know the initiatives that you're working on, and to see that you are Newark-based, MBE, WBE, doing this work. Deputy Mayor Ladd and I have talked about the neighborhood revitalization efforts, so really excited to see your involvement in that, Narelle. Last and certainly not least, excited to introduce you all to Daryl Shore, who is the Vice President of Inclusive Communities at Prudential Financial, my partner in crime in many respects, and Prudential has just been a phenomenal partner, supporter, investor, and leader in economic development and equitable development in our city, really seeding many of the programs that we're going to be talking about today. And so Daryl will not be getting rid of me even as I move over to Audible. So with that, Daryl. Ah, you're still on mute. the dreaded mute. Let's see, almost, not quite there. We're getting there. Here's the stadium.
Can you hear me
music.
now?
There we go.
Great. So thanks, Aisha, and thank you to everybody else on the panel. It's nice to see some familiar faces and new faces. As Aisha mentioned, I am the Vice President of Inclusive Communities at Prudential Financial. And essentially my job is to really drive the inclusive economic growth strategy for the firm, but really focused on Newark as our headquarter and hometown city, really thinking about how do we improve systems and really work collaboratively with other organizations to drive inclusive economic growth in the city. Really want to ensure that as opportunity comes to the city, we're ensuring that all residents have opportunity to access and grow, whether it's through social or economic means. And so I look forward to being a part of this conversation. The Hire, Live, Buy, to me is an example of a very comprehensive economic development strategy that we're glad to support. And finally, I would say, yes, Aisha, you are stuck with me, and I'm already thinking about what joint initiative we can launch once you get over to Audible. So thanks again, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks, Daryl. And because we can't see the audience participants, I'm sure somebody's rolling their eyes or making some snarky face. We don't mean to make this sound overly like a love fest, but I think the undertone is authentic, which is this work takes collaboration, and we have to have nonprofit partners at the table. We have to have the public sector, the private sector, philanthropy, small businesses involved. And if we don't, then this work will just not advance. So, and it helps to like each other if you're working together towards one shared goal and vision. So just wanted to say that, not like we're trying to hold hands and all sing kumbaya. This work is hard, so it makes it easier if you kind of get along with one another and you do have a shared vision. So with that, we are, I'm glad that we actually sped through the introduction so we can get to the questions. So we're 5 minutes ahead of schedule, which means that, you know, it'll either leave us more room for Q&A or that we can give a little bit more substance to some of our answers, particularly the first one, since I'm throwing it out to all of you. Anyone can feel free to jump in, but each of you are involved in different aspects of Hire, Buy, Live, some of which you touched on during your opening remarks, or you might be doing your own work independent of those projects to increase hiring. Narelle, I know you mentioned that as well. So either increase hiring or procure more goods locally and to decrease the overall economic disparities that exist that Daryl just mentioned. So if folks just want to jump in and talk a little bit about how you've seen these things change over the past few years since Hire, Buy, Live was launched in 2017. So maybe you could talk about a few specific ways that residents have gained access to employment or contract opportunities or just other opportunities that you think would improve their lives and help provide folks with a seat at the table. And I think the point of this question too is really a little bit of a retrospective, right? So where are we now? Because we have made some progress over the past few years. So opening the floor. Go for it.
For me? All right. Well, thank you so much. And again, so honored to be on here with all of my colleagues in Newark. Earlier this year, I'd like just to address a little bit about what we've done to help with the employment hire in Newark. And, earlier this year, I came across a tech article on roinj.com that ranked Newark as one of the top 10 places for new tech programmers to live and work. And I thought it's another good baseline piece of data for us to have. And being a Newark native myself, born in Beth Israel Hospital, and part of the, organizations such as Audible that's committed to Newark's revitalization and socioeconomic development, this article is important to bring up because it was a confirmation for me that the collective efforts of this group are truly making an impact and being recognized outside of Newark and nationwide. And in terms of, Audible's local recruiting efforts, we're invested not just in the local job pool, but also building a strong pipeline of Newark students. And two of the programs I just want to briefly touch on that we're proud of are our community hiring program and our intern and scholar program. And as part of what we call our cornerstone program, we collaborate with local organizations to identify Newark job seekers, including those that are homeless, to serve as customer service roles at Audible and at other organizations. And we've done some work to help prepare these job seekers. We learn about each person's interests, we review resumes, conduct mock interviews, even do some one-on-one coaching on a wide range of professional skills, not just tech coding. And we help them build their resumes and then get ready for the interviews. Candidates who do join Audible participate in incremental, getting ready for the job with e-learnings, instructor-led trainings, and we give them buddies to help them really onboard and understand what it's like to work in a corporate environment. And just to share, we've since 2017, we've hired close to 60 local job seekers, and some of them have transitioned even since joining Audible to other departments within Audible. And we expect to see an even greater chance of or increase in internal mobility across the organization as we drive this program forward. So really excited about getting people who are in the workforce and even those who are unfortunate and even worse, homeless, get back into the workforce. And just quickly switching gears to our community education program, of course, we're committed to finding and bringing in the young minds from the Newark high schools and pulling them through longitudinally through their time in high school, through their time in college, and through our organization to their college years, so that we can hire them full time, when they graduate. And just to give you a sense, just this past summer, as we heard earlier, so many folks are losing their jobs and canceling internships. We held our first virtual summer internship program, which included close to 140 high school and college students, and kept them busy online all summer. And I think just as important, paid them well so they could also continue to even support their families with some of their income. So just wanted to kind of share some of those baseline programs that we've done, Aisha, to add to some of the comments that were made earlier, particularly by Karen.
Great. Thank you, Anne, for sharing that. Anyone else want to share kind of a retrospective and one?
I'll jump in. This is Diana. So I think Newark 2020, what I've seen since 2017, what it really has done, I think, for our system is to push us to really evaluate internally some of our hiring practices. I mean, we did a whole zip code analysis. We're constantly applying an equity lens so that we're even, cautious about where are we hiring to ensure that we're not excluding certain wards in Newark. It also has honestly served as a catalyst for our career ladder programs. We've implemented an apprenticeship program with actually 3 career tracks, such as EMTs and medical lab technologists. And again, in that criteria, we make sure that we're looking at our zip codes to ensure that we are really promoting and investing in those vulnerable communities in Newark. From a procurement perspective, We've also modified, again, our policies to pay our local small businesses within 30 days as opposed to our traditional 60 or 90 days out. Again, I think Newark 2020 has definitely allowed us as an institution to really assess internally how we're being, exclusive and how we can do better to be inclusive of the community in which we reside.
Thank you for that, Diana. And I think it'll be interesting for us to chat a little bit later, and it may come up in the questions as well, just to dig a little bit deeper around how to even create change within institutions, right? So we may have some attendees participating now and thinking this is a heavy lift, and it is in many instances, but it'll be interesting to hear and some of that come up a bit more in the discussion as well. So thank you. Anyone else?
Well, I'll jump in and say that I think that the city has done a very good job in the area of reentry and second chance through the initiatives of the mayor. And then we had some help in doubling those efforts through some federal funding sources that are about 3 years tried and true now. And those programs have not just offered employment, but education opportunities, workforce readiness opportunities, utilizing all the resources of the city, including the ministries of the city and social work assistance, a wide array of wraparound services for our second chance community. We have over 3 years learned to do this better, for sure. And the proof to me is that, sometimes in workforce, we have a chance to do incubator-like programming. And one of the recent programs that we launched was in the green infrastructure space, learning how to stand up a certification program for the city of Newark in green infrastructure. And what we took from the reentry programming and applied in that situation was, let's load in our recruiting efforts the reentry population first, and then let's attract in our recruiting efforts everybody else who has an interest in a nationally popular green energy certification program. Let's give the second chancers the first shot. And what we ended up with is a program that has both reentry population, average Newarkers, college students, and, oh, by the way, some engineers who have master's degrees in engineering, who are all together pursuing the same goals and lifting each other up through that process. It turned out that we're still, I'd say, 3/4 of the way through this experience, our first cohort, but we were sensitized by the 3 years of experience working with that population to know how to take away the stigma, how to integrate that population into a wider population through our creative programming, and to see the growth now as they're all in community with each other, pursuing the same or similar dreams, is a remarkable trajectory that we've been on. And I think we've done well to learn that particular lesson in just 3 years.
Anyone else want to jump in on this question before we move on?
Yeah, I would quickly say that, I think that having the initiative structured in a way where you're sitting at the table with other anchor institutions and you're able to have a shared learning and a dialogue about what's working, what's not working, what are some of the challenges you're facing in your organization, how you've overcome those challenges has been very helpful for Prudential. And I think just having that shared and kind of engagement is very important. The other piece I'll put to that is, I think as we think about how we address, racial and social justice issues, particularly as it comes to economic development. I think this program really sets an example of how other cities can bring intentionality to addressing some of the structural barriers that have prevented people from access to jobs, quality jobs, not just jobs, but quality jobs. And as you think about small business, access to being able to grow their business, because I think we know, and the data shows that if you provide those type of resources and opportunities to small businesses, they tend to hire locally, they tend to stay in the community. And so there's a ripple effect. And so when I think about the initiative and how comprehensive it is, I think it hits a lot of the work that anchor institutions like Prudential and others on this phone, on this call are trying to do, and the issues they're trying to address.
No, you bring up a great point, Darryl. Thank you for that. I think the benefit of having the collaboration and I think specifically for the Newark Anchor Collaborative, which sits at the Alliance and allows some of that peer-to-peer connection. I think it goes back to the earlier comment after Diana's remarks, just thinking about how do we make sure that we're actually learning from each other. So yes, we need philanthropy, but for small businesses and medium-sized businesses, is the role and the impact we can have in the city is not necessarily philanthropic. There are ways to help really strengthen the local economy and think about local hiring and procurement in a way that can have an impact in a predominantly minority city, to really work collectively to affect change. So I think the fact that it is peer-to-peer just can really help us all learn from each other about how to make sure we're rolling these out effectively within our institutions. Any other thoughts before we move on in the lineup?
Aisha, I'd just like to share one piece. I think everyone has talked a lot about how do we level set conversations and how are we more inclusive. I think one piece to share with people, and I mentioned it in my introduction, was intro remarks, is that Mayor Baraka here in Newark, as many people know, holds men's and women's meetings. These men's and women's meetings are held monthly, and they're really meant to provide information to individuals who may not have all of the knowledge and resources to access procurement processes, to understand approaches to buying property, and really connecting people with City Hall. I think sometimes we in city government can forget that what our jobs are for the people and for equity and inclusion. And so it's really our responsibility to be present with them. And I think Mayor Baraka's men's and women's meetings, which now are held virtually, but they used to be held in City Hall in the chambers on a Friday night or a Thursday night, and they were, very well attended. And I think that I'll end with, it helped create a conversation that wasn't happening. And I think a lot of what we're talking about today is creating conversations that weren't happening before, because that's one way in which we can cut through any social injustice or racial barriers that have been present in our communities.
Is it okay for me to snap my fingers if I agree? Can we do that? Thank you, Allison. So Allison and Narelle move along in our questioning. Home ownership is long recognized as an entry point to wealth building. How does your work speak to this, and how have you seen home ownership and the contracting opportunities that come with it impact Newark residents?
Would you like me to go first? Okay, so the great thing about that question is that the answer to it is that Newark is a city that is very development friendly. And so the positive aspect of this is that there are numerous opportunities for homeownership for its residents, especially like Allison mentioned, if they know where to look and they seek out that information. I have seen and been a part of watching the equity growth in properties that are purchased within Newark, and they increase in value. And so for those families who have taken advantage of purchasing homes in the city, they hopefully have benefited from increased property values. On the flip side of that, however, despite these opportunities, the homeownership rate in Newark is only about 22%. So we still have a way to go when compared to the national average, which currently stands at about 64%. It's important to note that construction was one of the most common industries in Newark in 2017 and is still the case in 2020, which is a good thing. And with that comes many contracting opportunities for tradesmen who are both highly skilled and residents of Newark. So as an example, my company actively seeks out Newark-based consultants and hires contractors that are Newark residents on our ground-up construction projects. In addition, as part of the West Ward redevelopment plan, developers who are participants in the program have to commit to doing the following, and I'll just name a couple of the more important ones. One is ensuring that at least 30% of all contractors, subcontractors, and suppliers are based in Newark. And the second is that 40% of the workforce that actually performs the services are with qualified Newark residents. So these are some real world examples of how the construction industry in particular impacts hire, buy, live, both directly and indirectly. And I will say that the fact that the city has city ordinances that have these concepts, in my opinion, they're baked in, right, to these ordinances and the redevelopment plans, will continue to help provide employment, contracting, and home ownership opportunities for Newark residents. And that's, I think we can all agree that that's what we would want to see.
Great, thanks, Narelle. Allison, on using home ownership as a community wealth building tool?
Sure. As we know, home ownership is a way to build wealth. It's something that I know when I bought my first place, some time ago, it was difficult. I was stretched. I wasn't sure how I was going to be able to have disposable income and pay for a mortgage. But something that cities are doing across the country, and Newark is doing the same, is providing down payment assistance to individuals where down payment may be a barrier to entry. And so here in Newark, we have Live Newark program, which provides $5,000. It's a forgivable grant to anyone who's interested in purchasing a home here in the city. It's across the city in all 5 wards, and it's something that really is helpful, I think, for people who are trying to buy their first house. Second, though, the other part is once you buy your house, sometimes there's repairs that are needed over time. And so a second component of the Live Newark program is a $15,000 grant that's actually available to help people who are trying to renovate their home and stay in their home, because that's really an important place for us to be as we're trying to ensure that there's housing security in our city. The last thing I'll say, and Narelle touched on it, is that the other part we need to do is build more. We need to have more supply here in our city so that people have choice. We want to have the ability to transform our vacant and blighted properties, but at the same time have partners that are really mission focused and city policy driven about making affordable housing and having affordable housing in our city. As we're closing out, this part of the conversation, perhaps I just want to say, the mayor's leadership during COVID-19, I think really helped us understand some of the inequities in our city and our community. And so it was really part of what the mayor charged us all to do, some also on this call and this conference, was to say, how do we ensure that our residents have safe, decent places to call home? How do they have choice, and how do they have the ability to care and be with their families in a safe environment? So, so much goes into what we do in the city of Newark, but as it relates to home ownership, the mayor's front and center trying to find ways for us to have new homeowners build wealth and equity and also stay in their homes.
Thank you, Allison. Shameless plug for the down payment assistance programs at City Hall. At the Alliance, we've partnered up to supplement that $5,000 with an additional $2,500. So I think we still have funds left. Is that correct, Allison? The pipeline has been slowed, not as many home buyers given this market, but maybe you'll help get the word out. So just had to throw in that quick plug. And Audible has been pretty innovative when it comes to encouraging its workforce to truly be a part of Newark. Can you chat a little bit about why this is important from a company's perspective and the role that plays in employee morale and retention? I have these conversations not as frequently now, not as many corporations looking to expand or relocate, but employee morale and retention and talent attraction and retention, I should say, is really critically important. I used to give corporate tours to heads of real estate, and now the chief talent officers are joining those tours and really engaged in some of the decisions around, where they want to base their company. So just wondering how your workforce responds to the resources that Audible has provided in helping them to live in Newark. And then maybe we can touch a little bit on some of your other efforts to ensure that the workforce is being really engaged with Newark, with the lunch out program that has now evolved to Newark Working Kitchen. So I know I just said a lot. There was like 3 questions baked into one, but yeah, just the workforce piece, if you want to share a little bit more there.
Sure. And in my opening remarks, I talked about the fact that I manage people and places. And when I first came to Audible, I came to manage HR, and I admit I generally didn't have an appreciation of how connected they are. So maybe I'll just talk first to your first question about like what it means from a company's perspective in our culture. And at Audible, our founder and executive chairman, Don Katz, is a real believer in words, which is the foundation of our business. We are the purveyor of the spoken word. And he wrote People Principles several years ago. And I'm just going to read just a couple of tidbits that'll just give you a sense of like how we try to convey this in our culture. And the first is, we work shoulder to shoulder like the missionary agents of the change we are. All of us share the heart and soul of a startup, even as we grow large. This requires passionate advocacy in debate and culture of extremely high expectations. And then he goes on to say that, we work to improve the lives of those without privilege in the cities and countries in which we operate, because Audible seeks to exemplify what a company can mean beyond what it does. And what we are is a tech company that brings the spoken word to life, right? Whether it's books or Audible originals. But it also means like, how do we engage our employees beyond the work they do every day? And how do we differentiate ourselves in the fight for talent? How do we get, software engineers to come to Newark versus our competitors over the, 2 rivers in New York City at the Googles and Facebook? And we have found that our commitment in New York is absolutely a beacon, and some of the reasons why people say, I really love this company. And I'll just give you a couple of sense of, first of all, we moved to Newark over a decade ago with the specific purpose of having a positive economic impact. And so some of the things that we've done that people have really engaged with is, one is our Live Local program, which provides every employee living in Newark with a $500 a month stipend. And this has been hugely popular and something that, and it's after tax $500. We also have something called the Lunch Out Wednesday program, which was an effort to get all of our employees out and eating in local restaurants, and we subsidize that to infuse cash into the local community. And we're just trying to help every employee feel that just by going out and grabbing lunch, that they're supporting the Newark comeback and driving a tech ecosystem that's important to drive Newark. I think the number I heard last was our Live Local program has quadrupled in number, has quadrupled the number of employees who are living in Newark now than when it started a few years back. The other thing that's really in progress right now and growing is that we were able to leverage many of these restaurant partnerships for our newest effort called Newark Working Kitchens, NWK. And when COVID hit and everybody went home, all the restaurants lost that support. It wasn't just Lunch Out Wednesdays. All my colleagues at Crew and everybody it employees going out and supporting the restaurants. So we decided this was an opportunity to create a flywheel. This was an idea that came up from two of our female leaders in Newark. And the idea was, why don't we create a free subsidized meal delivery service, kind of parlay, I know there's a little bit of an echo here, but parlay some of the money that we would have spent supporting our employees' lunches to Newark residents, and then also create and sustain jobs while feeding people. So if everyone can still hear me, but we're proud to share that as of today, and I checked the number this morning, we've served 463,000 meals that have been delivered in Newark by 25 local restaurants in 24 weeks. And some of our employees have even come out of quarantine to help with the preparation, coordination, and delivery of those meals, which also go to a lot of the elderly and some of the low-income housing. And what we're so excited about is we feel like we've created this model that can be exported to other cities, but also we're exploring this whole notion of NWK delivers. So when employees come back, that we can actually continue to order in and have them delivered to our building on a regular daily basis.
That's great. That's phenomenal. Anne, thank you so much. And I think particularly for NRBP's base of many business types, but smaller and medium-sized businesses, folks can appreciate the job retention there and the investment to the businesses. We want to throw out a procurement question to Daryl, Diana, and Kevin. And maybe Barbara, can you give me a quick time check? How are we looking?
Yeah, we have several audience questions. So if you don't mind, I could throw out two in particular to be sure we get to those.
Okay.
All right. The first is a contracting question for Narelle. This one comes from KS Engineers, but I ask it on behalf of many of the members of NRBP who are in some aspect of either engineering or construction, assistance, design. And the question, and we can do a direct introduction for anybody that wants it. This one comes from KS Engineers. They have been long-time Newark business. So it's not really a question, but just a comment that Narelle will be putting anyone that contacts us in touch with you to learn about what opportunities there are.
Okay.
Great.
Then we have a question on employment, and that is about prisoner reentry. And what, with the anticipated release of more prisoners to take them out of an environment where they could potentially get COVID, what's being done to help them with reentry in this horrible job market where if they get back and they don't have a job, are they vulnerable to what brought them to prison in the first place?
Great. Karen, do you want to take that one in terms of some of the work coming out of the reentry program? And then Barbara, I think some of the feedback was from your microphone.
I will mute right now.
Karen, you're on mute. I did see a t-shirt that said you're on mute, and I was thinking about just wearing it every single time I'm on a video conference and just pointing to it.
There we go.
Go for it.
There we go. That looks better. Can you hear me? Yes. This is a really important question. When COVID hit, we actually had, it was a very real situation for us because we were doing extensive programming with the reentry community. I think there were 2 or 3 different initiatives happening simultaneously in the city of Newark for reentry. And immediately those folks that we were working with who were not already released into the community, but were part of halfway houses, and I think that's who the caller was referring to, went back into lockdown. for their own safety under COVID. And so what that meant for them was the employment opportunities that they had were immediately put on a shelf. And we haven't since March. We have attempted to have access to that community. The city doesn't control that access, but we've had social workers, mentors, members of the ministry community, all sorts of outreach attempted, and we've had less access than we desired, especially at a time when that population needed to feel free, needed to feel like they were contributing to a new life for themselves. They found themselves back in lockdown, in both mentally and physically. Again, we are just now getting word that it looks as though they're going to be relieving that status. So look how many months that's been. We have already been preparing for months to receive them, back into some work capacity, which is very important so that they can feel independent again. But all of the wraparound attention that they're going to need, especially counseling, especially family restoration activities, especially credentialing and learning how to learn again, help with housing, help with furniture, help with restoring their driver's licenses. It's going to get down into the weeds, the support and help that they're going to need. And one of the great things that just happened is one of our grants that was due to expire for this population was just extended for a year because of COVID. So we're going to have at least one more year to assist in this area, and we're grateful for it.
Thank you for that, Karen. And thanks for throwing out those two audience questions, Barbara. I'm going to jump down to a local procurement question, which I think is definitely also really pertinent to NRBP membership base. So for Daryl, Diana, and Kevin, your institutions are doing a lot of work to support local procurement. Can you talk about some of the success obtaining quality goods or services locally? And I think, you know, some of this is just removing the perception that Newark-based businesses are not yet prepared to vend at the scale that some of our corporations and anchors might need. So maybe RWJ and Rutgers can talk a little bit about what that looks like on the procurement side. Of course, Kevin, you can talk about it on the back end in terms of prepping the businesses. And then Daryl, I think overall, the overarching work and support from PRU is critical here too. So I'm just going to throw it out and let any of the three of you jump in on that question, keeping the membership base in mind. Somebody, anybody? You are all on mute, maybe?
Okay, I was put into timeout, I think. So I'll just go real quick because I know we're running short on time. I think the most important thing for us was obviously contracts, and making them available to people to bid on. I think the process of getting contracts was convoluted. Dropping a lot of the barriers and steps to actually getting a contract was one thing that we did at the university. So I'm just speaking on behalf of Rutgers. And then walking through a lot of our processes. So if you're in a trademark licensing or you have a company, and there's several here in Newark, where you're going to be using the university's logo, it's a very long process to go through trademark and licensing. So we took upon us to hold our suppliers by the hand and take them through that process rather than just throwing a bunch of paperwork at them and telling them that you have to do all this in order to get a contract with Rutgers. So I think it's very important that we try our best to remove historical barriers to getting contracts. And I think that's the most critical part. And then just having the availability of contracts themselves. It's great to talk about, how to do business and having a lot of workshops and such about that. But at the end of the day, if there's no contract at the end of the discussion, then it's just a discussion. So I think just making ourselves much more available and targeting the local community for those business opportunities is key.
Great, thank you. Daryl or Diana? I'm pointing to my shirt if you're on mute.
I know. Can you folks hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So just to add on very quickly to it, Kevin Lyons said, totally in agreement. For us, it has looked at a lot of actually vendors. We've contracted for construction, facilities, management opportunities, with our renovation of Newark Behavioral Medical Center. But we've also utilized, local vendors for professional services, whether that's promotional items, marketing, food. It really spans the gamut in terms of industries that we're engaging for our procurement needs. But the one thing I would say is with changing our RFP language, that also provides us opportunities throughout our system, right? Because we have 11 acute care facilities. So just because we're using local Newark contractors in a Newark Behavioral Medical Center renovation does not mean that we can't utilize those same vendors in our New Brunswick construction projects. And so this enables us, again, to be inclusive across the state with our local vendors wherever we have a facility and a hospital.
Great. So can you hear me? Great. So I'll just add to that. I think at Prudential, we take a very comprehensive approach, right? And so, we are the largest, if not the largest supporter of the Newark Alliance, because we believe that having the program under an organization that can manage it, that can really make sure that the resources are there to bring the anchors around the table is important. So really thinking about that infrastructure by supporting the Alliance with programmatic and operational support. I think secondly, we work with our colleagues in procurement to look for opportunities to grow the number of local vendors that we do business with, whether it's around facilities or professional services as well, and then also making sure that they have the tools and the engagement opportunities they need with the different individuals driving this work in the city as well. And then finally, we invest in the small business ecosystem, right? And so we want to do more with small businesses, but we know that a lot of small businesses face similar challenges: access to capital, access to technical assistance, and access to markets. Markets, us being a procurement, so we open that up. But how do we support the ecosystem to make sure they get the capital they need to grow and sustain their businesses, and also get the technical assistance they need to run their businesses efficiently? We know a lot of these entrepreneurs are really good at what they do, but may lack some of the back office skills. And so we want to support technical assistance providers, access to capital providers, and also help them grow their markets. And so we take a very comprehensive approach in terms of supporting local procurement in the city of Newark.
Great, thank you. So I guess, Barbara, before we turn it over to any additional questions, I'll just add a couple of quick points as we are prioritizing buy local, and I think it spans across so many of our work. And so whether it's figuring out how to invest in businesses through the Newark Working Kitchens program, supporting local developers like Narelle's company, prioritizing local businesses because they have proven to hire more residents locally. So just wanted to, I feel like that's the common thread across so much of this work. And so the city itself over the past 5 years has really been prioritizing local procurement. When the mayor first came into office, the city's own procurement was at 3%, and now it's a little bit over 30%. And so for the small and medium-sized businesses that might be joining us this afternoon, 2 quick takeaways. I encourage you to go to the city's website and enroll in their vendor registration program, so that way you get all the blasts that are coming out at the city level. I encourage you to seek out opportunities just like New Age Investment Properties did, and I encourage you to visit investnewark.org to check out their procurement portal, which is really meant to bring some of these opportunities front and center. Local procurement is going to be a key component of our economic recovery. And so I just wanted to put that front and center. And I guess I will now turn it back over to you, Barbara, in case there are any additional questions before we wrap.
We have exhausted the audience question. So I think it's time to turn it over to Chip to close the program. Aisha, and everyone, thank you so much.
Thank you to our panelists as well.
Absolutely. Thank you to everybody for spending time, and for our audience, which has remained with us for well over an hour and 15 minutes at this point. So obviously the conversation was compelling and the information provided by all of you was worthwhile. So just a couple very quick things. Aisha, at the very beginning, you talked about, you didn't want this to sound like a love fest. Well, I think a love fest sounds pretty good these days, and it's nice to see that so many good things are coming under very trying circumstances in this city. And certainly thank you for your leadership, and I think we're all glad that we'll continue to have the ability to work with you going forward in your new position. So congratulations to you. Allison, you talked a little bit about creating conversations and how important that is, and we feel the same way. It's important for us to have these conversations about hiring and buying and living in Newark, but it's also important to have these conversations in these tough times about anti-Blackness and about discrimination, about bringing racial equity to the fold. And the more we can talk about it, the more we create conversations and understanding, the better off we'll all be. And that's the purpose of our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion series. And we're very grateful for your involvement, and the mayor, who has continually inspired and led and frankly challenged the business community to do more than ever before. So credit to the leadership there in the city. For those small businesses, I think small and medium-sized businesses, Ann, Diana, and Daryl talked a lot about what their organizations are doing, and in so many ways being pioneers in this work and really trying things that haven't been tried before and taking a risk and spending a lot of resources in your organizations to try to make the city a better place. And that's been phenomenal. And I think the best part of it is you've laid the groundwork for many other small and medium-sized businesses that we have as members to think more about what they can do in this area, about encouraging employees to live in Newark by making that extra effort to consider Newarkers for jobs and getting good talent from those Newarkers. So I think you don't have to have 2, 3, 4, 5,000 employees to make an impact. You just need to make an effort as a smaller employer. So, thank you for you and your organizations leading the charge there. And Narelle was a great example of a small business who's making a huge impact. And congratulations on what you've done and what you're doing to inspire more people to live in the city and to achieve that dream and the generational wealth that will result as they purchase and live in their houses for a very long time. And Kevin's been at this work for so long and often behind the scenes, and I think unsung and unheralded, Kevin, for the strategic way that you've approached getting more people and providing more opportunities and streamlining procedures and getting everybody to understand what it takes to do a better job of procurement and reaching out to local businesses. So with that, I once again want to thank the NRBP team, Maya, who's leading our DE&I initiative, and Barbara, who does such a great job in putting these webinars together as well as the rest of our team that reminds our members that we're a great resource for them as they continue to move forward. So with that, I thank you all for being with us. We look forward to having you all at another event, and we do look forward to the day when we can all have that handshake and that hug once again. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Take care.